Serious. What do you think is the creepiest, most disturbing unsolved mystery ever? The Cleveland torso murderer. From 1935 to 1938, there was a serial killer who chopped off the heads and appendages of 12 to 20 people and left their torsos for people to find. The famous detective Elliot Ness was on the case, and the killer taunted him by leaving 2 torsos within full view of his office. The killer was never identified, nor were the majority of the victims. Honestly, the Cape intruder isn't disturbing, just weird as hell. During the night in Cape, Maine, in like 2005, people who kept their doors unlocked would wake up to find a man staring at them and he would quickly flee. No people were ever injured and nothing was ever stolen. They just watched people sleep apparently. The Axeman of New Orleans guy was murdering people but wrote a letter that he wouldn't kill anyone who played jazz in their home. Never caught. Someone said that the police could have all hid in one house not playing jazz music and catch him that way. The West Mesa bone collector. The bones of dozens of women were found at a construction site, no other clues. The Setagaya family murder. Late on the night of December 30, 2000 in Setagaya, Tokyo, a man broke into the house of a family of 4, strangled the son in his bed, stabbed the father, and brutally killed the mother and daughter. The killer then spent hours in the house eating their food, using their toilet, and going through their paperwork like he owned the place, and eventually left, never to be found since. The Hinterkaifeck murders always freaked me out. I've read quite a bit about it, and it sounds like it was probably a neighbor. But the creepy part is that the killer was probably hiding out in the attic for multiple days beforehand. I read about this for the first time when I went on a multi-night hiking trip. I stayed in cabins. The first night, there was a loft above where we were sleeping. I stared at it all night. Edit. Adding a really good write-up on our unresolved mysteries. It has way more information than the Wikipedia page. Read this a while back and just remembered about it. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It's a lengthy case so I won't summarize here, but he went missing while on the phone with his parents, his last known words being "oh shit" before the line went dead. Not a trace of him has ever been found. Edit. Lol what? I go away from Reddit for a few hours and I come back to up votes and awards? Y'all are too kind. Thanks. Technically not unsolved since everyone can guess what happened to her, but it's one of the creepiest emo. Alyssa Turney was a teenager who disappeared in 2001. Her stepfather, Michael Turney, was obsessed with her. He stalked her at work, put cameras in the vents to spy on her and made her sign contracts to say he never molested her. Michael picked her up from school early on May 17, 2001 and she's never been seen since. Her half-sister, Sarah Turney, has an amazing podcast called Voices for Justice which explains the case in detail, and because of her Michael Turney was arrested in August 2020. The death of Rebecca Zahau has stuck with me. Zahau's nude body was found hanging from a balcony, with her wrists and ankles bound and hands behind her back. Her death was ruled a suicide. As if that wasn't strange enough, 2 days prior to her death, the 6-year-old son of her boyfriend fell down a staircase and died. His death was ruled an accident. There's a lot to read about this case, and I highly recommend it if you're into true crime. What happened to Pedro Lopez? He is one of the most prolific serial killers in history, and claims to have murdered over 350 women and girls. Since his release in 1998, his whereabouts are currently unknown. Link. I can't remember his name. But there was a case of a college-age young man, Brian I think is his first name, who was reported missing after a night out. There's security camera footage of him entering a bar, but absolutely no footage of him leaving. Like he went into the bar and just flat out dropped off the face of the earth. The last I knew, he's never been found and nobody knows what happened to him. ETA. Brian Schaefer, who went missing from Columbus, Ohio. Thanks, Reddit. Also ETA, since it keeps coming up. The bar was on a second floor at that time with only one public entrance, exit. The police extensively reviewed all the security camera footage. Brian and everyone else who was there that night was seen on camera entering the bar. Everyone, except for Brian, who was at the bar that night, was seen on camera leaving the bar. Which would nix any theories that he left wearing different clothes, disguised as someone else, mixed in with a crowd. Brian Schaefer. And with the bar now closed and torn down, it's going to be difficult to ever solve this one. Yes, that's him. But yeah, this one has always weirded me out that he literally disappeared without a trace. And from a crowded bar, under such strange circumstances. There's a similar one in the UK. A guy called Corey McKeague. After going out drinking with friends, he became separated. There's CCTV of him walking into a dead end which had several large wheelie bins, dumpsters. It's thought he fell asleep in one of the dumpsters and was accidentally lifted into the bin lorry. Despite a huge search of landfill and tracing his mobile, his body has not been found, and he is now presumed dead. Link. I'm trying to comprehend drinking enough to hop into a trash can and sleep in it. I read somewhere that it was a fairly common thing for him to do. I go to Ohio State. The gossip theory is that he fell out of an unsecure door in the bar. You see, the first location of Ugly Tuna, the bar, was on a second-story building. This building was undergoing construction. The main doors had cameras, the fake construction doors did not. He must have fell out of a second-story construction door. There was a cover-up, because the family would have sued for tons of money. That's the whispered theory. There's no footage because there is footage of the real doors that led to flooring, and no footage of the fake construction doors led to a two-story drop-off of a construction site. I've explained it poorly, but I hope there's some clarity. Edit. I'm under the influence, do not listen to anything I say. The case of Adam immediately came to mind. Unidentified male child whose torso was discovered in the River Thames in London, United Kingdom, on 21 September 2001. Dubbed Adam by police officers, the unidentified remains belonged to a black male, around 4 to 8 years old, who had been wearing orange girl shorts. The post-mortem showed that Adam had been poisoned, his throat had been slit to drain the blood from his body, and his head and limbs had been expertly removed. Investigators believe the child was likely from southwestern Nigeria, and that several days before his murder, he was trafficked to the United Kingdom for a Muti ritual sacrifice. To date, nobody has been charged with Adam's murder, and his true identity remains unknown. Link Rip Little Dude. Asha Degree. What made that young girl leave home in the middle of a storm with a backpack? In the early 80s, all within 18 months of each other, 3 paperboys in the Des Moines, Iowa area all went missing during their morning route. The cases have never been solved. There are theories ranging from a pedophilia ring, an ex-employee who was a creeper kidnapping them, and even a lone wolf-type situation. It's a bizarre case that has baffled Iowa for years. The Las Vegas mass shooting is the worst such event in our nation's history, and law enforcement basically told us nothing. The disappearance of the Beaumont children. The Beaumont children are siblings who disappeared in 1966. There are still to this day investigations ongoing to try and find the remains of these children. There have been foundations of sheds and houses dug up. The children have never been found and the suspects has never been identified. I remember watching the Unsolved Mysteries episode about a person in 1977 who would send creepy anonymous letters to random folks in a small town. Actually threatening ones, too. The sender started by mailing up a woman and telling her, if I remember right, that they knew she was cheating on her husband with a superintendent, something she vehemently denied. Then they threatened her husband by saying he'd be in danger if he did not stop the affair. The couple decided to take it upon themselves to hunt the sender down. That ended with the husband dead in his crashed pickup truck. The sender kicked the wife while she was down by leaving threatening signs along her bus route, at least one of which had an actual booby trap on it. They found and arrested a suspect, but it's still unknown today if he's the actual sender. He denies it. The idea that somebody has been quietly studying your life just so they could begin to anonymously blackmail you, or make up a rumor to blackmail you with, is pretty damn scary. Addendum. In 2021, a forensics professional claimed that the police were right all along and the suspect who was released by then was the sender. But the massive hole in her claim is how he was still able to write letters during his time in prison. I'd like to see the bastard that killed Abigail and Liberty get what he deserves. Friends with the family and they confirmed they were assaulted. Link. What happened to the Eilean Mor lighthouse keepers? Most likely they were swept out to sea by violent waves. But no storms were reported on the dates they went missing. And if there were, why would they leave the safety of their lighthouse? In 1969, a student was killed in the stacks of the library at my old college, Penn State, and was found with a singular stab wound on her chest. It wasn't even late or anything, and while there were many suspects, no one was ever arrested for it. It's insane how someone could kill a person in broad daylight at a major university, and get away with it. It's not really anything super crazy, in comparison to other stories here. It's just weird to me personally because I would always study there and I didn't find out about it until after I graduated. The murder of the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme. He was killed over 30 years ago and no one have found the murder. The Black Dahlia case. How can someone randomly disappear and be found chopped in half by a surgeon who was never found? What? Doesn't add up to me. It'll likely never be officially, forensically proven, but I feel confident that Dr. Hodel did it. I'd even venture to guess she wasn't his only victim. Lol, here's what I just replied a second before your comment. As someone who's always been interested in unsolved mysteries and true crime, I feel somewhat silly for not having known this until recently, but the Dahlia murders are not quite the complete unknown that I thought they were. Dr. George Hodel was a prime suspect at the time and his son, an LAPD homicide detective, wrote extensively about why he thought his father was the killer. My understanding is that it's a case of we know who it was but it'll never be possible to prove officially, instead of a Jack the Ripper scenario where there's like a million different suspects and the true identity of the killer is likely lost to time. In my opinion, it's the City of San Francisco train derailment that occurred in Hardin, NV on 12 August 1939. The train, run by the Southern Pacific Railroad at the time, derailed at a bridge over the Humboldt River at a speed range of 60 to 90 mph. The accident resulted in 24 fatalities and multiple injuries. Days later, investigators discovered tools at the bottom of the Humboldt River, determining that the wreck was caused by sabotage of the rails. Link. Boy in the Box, 1957, Philadelphia. Warning. Graphic details. This story just makes me so sad and sticks out to me as a true crime junkie, especially with the recent case of a child being found in a Las Vegas suitcase that is still under investigation. Basically, a young boy whose age was estimated to be 3 to 7 years old was found in a box naked and mutilated with bruises on the side of a road in Philadelphia. It was strange because the boy appeared to have been very malnourished, but was recently groomed, haircut, fingernails all trimmed. He was covered in scars, some surgical, suggesting he had previously been taken care of. Evidence suggests he was taken care of by a possible parent, guardian before he was taken into custody of his abuser. Cause of death determined to be blunt force trauma. How anyone could do something like this is just foul and disturbing to say the very least. The worst part is? It's just a big mystery, almost nothing to go off of. There wasn't anyone matching his description reported missing. There wasn't any record of this kid, his pure existence was a mystery. Nothing came of the case, even all these years later. There were some leads but they didn't result to much, despite heavy media coverage and a search to find who this boy was. Some theories include that his parents did this to him, which would explain why he was previously in good condition, then they never reported him missing after they killed him. And back then it was easier to not have record of a child that probably or wasn't born in a hospital. That he was a victim of sex trafficking. The cleaning and grooming of him before he was dumped wasn't to pay some sort of respect to him, but to remove of evidence that might have been on his body, or any defining features like his hair. What happened to him, and who did this? Why the box? Why was he kept malnourished, but haphazardly groomed before being dumped on the side of the road? Who is he? Edits. Correcting misinformation I originally put about the case. Bad summarizing on my part. Charles E. Peck. He passed away in a train accident but kept calling loved ones after he died. Can't figure this one out. Edited *. Thank you guys. Not necessarily the most creepy or disturbing thing I know of, but it was close to me. A friend I went to school with from 6th–12th grade was driving home when a car pulled up next to his and the driver shot him in the head. Killed him instantly. This was about 7 years ago. No one has any idea why or who the shooter was. No one has ever said anything. He had no enemies, was universally liked, never hurt anyone. He was 20. Our community is not large, someone knows something but has never come forward. Real shame. had a bright future. The murder of Robert I is something I think about often. He was with friends, just staying the night, and what happened to him sounds brutal. Even more disturbing to me is the fact that everyone who was in that house that evening seemingly have a pact of silence and are walking around free as a bird. Alicia Navarro. She went missing, presumably after sneaking out to meet with a man she was talking to on Discord. It's creepy because of how real it is. As a naive girl who met up with guys I befriended online as a teenager, I just cannot stop thinking about how goddamn lucky I was. The missing Sodder children and the fact the parents received a supposed photo of one of the boys years later.